Hello everyone, welcome to the Witching Hour. If you're new here, my channel revolves around discussing fantasy and science fiction shows and movies. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. Today we'll be discussing the Netflix anime series, The Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf. I watched it yesterday and I had mixed feelings about it. I'm glad that they are expanding the Witcherverse. I think that one major mistake that Game of Thrones made is they waited too long to start working on the spinoffs, and after that terrible final season, will the same fans return for House of the Dragon? That's a question that will hopefully be answered within the next year. There will be spoilers later in the video. I will give you a warning beforehand though. I think it was a great idea to give fans an animated movie to kind of tide them over until the second season of The Witcher releases on December 17th. I'm hoping they plan on doing an animated series on the training of Geralt since we saw him at the end of The Nightmare of the Wolf. The movie was good. It wasn't perfect, but I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. The animation was very well done, and since I'm not an animation expert, I mean that it was appealing to the eye and done in a style that I personally enjoy watching. I feel like all the voice actors did a great job, although for me, I didn't care too much for the voices of young Ileana, which was played by Jennifer Hale, young Vesemir, played by David Arrigo Jr. Oh, and Sugo, the young boy in the beginning, played by Luke Youngblood. You can tell they aren't children, but that's honestly just me being nitpicky. The action scenes were really good, but if I was to change one thing, it would be that they slow it down a little bit so we can appreciate them more. I liked watching an animated version because they're able to do a lot of things that would be difficult to accomplish with live action. But I feel like they made the Witchers a little more powerful than they should have been. From this point forward, there will be spoilers. If you haven't watched it, you might want to do so before watching the rest of this video. There were a few parts of the movie that felt disconnected to me. I assume that since the Witcher series and the Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf were both from Netflix, that there wouldn't be any real discrepancies from one to the other. But the discrepancy that I noticed was very annoying. In the show, Vesemir claims Geralt as a child surprise, but in this movie that does not seem to be the case at all. I watched it again to make sure that I didn't miss it, and sure enough, Geralt was brought on a wagon by another Witcher. I get that this is an origin story for Vesemir, but damn, could you not have stayed consistent between the show and the animated movie as to how Geralt came to be a Witcher? A lot of people are complaining about bald Geralt. But I don't have any issues with that. He was injected with poison. It seems probable that it could make someone's hair fall out and come back different than it was before. It happens with cancer patients receiving chemo. To me, it's the same concept. Here is a brief recap of the movie. We have Vesemir in his present day, and we also have the flashbacks of the time surrounding when he became a Witcher. So I'll start with when Vesemir was young. He hated his life. He was a poor servant that craved more out of life. He only had one thing that he seems to care a lot about, and that is his childhood friend, Ileana. The lady that he worked for became possessed by a Mar. That's when he meets Deglin, who is a very rough around the edges kind of Witcher. He helps the Witcher dispatch the Mar, and becomes convinced that that's the life for him. Adventure, travel, riches. He runs away to Kaer Morhen and leaves his father and Ileana and begins training to become a Witcher. Which is unusual because most Witchers are either child surprises or are sold to the Witchers to train them. So it's not very common for a boy to decide that that's what he wanted out of his life. While he's training to be a Witcher, he receives a letter from Ileana. It basically tells him that his dad is dead and to go live his life the way he wanted and leave his past behind. He eventually becomes a Witcher, while many of the boys he trained with died during the trials, which is a normal thing. Once he becomes a Witcher, he rides off into the sunset for his life of adventure and riches. All grown-up Vesemir seems to only care about himself. He isn't going to do anything for anyone without a little coin involved. He comes across a little boy in the forest whose family was killed by what he decides is an enchanted Leshen. He sends the boy on his way back to Cadwyn, where he tells the mage, Tetra Gilchrist, about what happened. What you need to know about Tetra is that she hates Witchers. She thinks they are corrupt, greedy, and corrosive stains on the continent. It turns out that her hatred stems from the fact that her mother was killed because the Witcher tricked a priest into believing that someone had made him sick. The priest naturally blamed the sorceress that had been a pain in his ass, but it turns out the Witcher had conspired with the cook to poison the priest. After that point, she hated all Witchers and everything they stood for. Vesemir is relaxing in a tub talking to Filavandrel, which is an elf that most of you might remember from the Witcher TV series. Filavandrel wants Vesemir to help him find some missing elven girls. The first to go missing was an elf named Kitsu. Vesemir being Vesemir, he isn't interested because there's no coin involved. There's still something killing the people from Cadwyn in the forest. Tetra blames the Witchers, and Lady Zerps demands that she has proof before blaming them. It turns out that Lady Zerps is Ileana at 70 years old. She has been a servant for the Zerps family when their son falls in love with her, married her, and eventually he dies, leaving her as a member of the council in Cadwyn. Vesemir and Luca go to the tavern together. A knight from Cadwyn starts a fight with them, and Luca ends up killing the knight. Both of them go to jail, and Lady Zerps convinces the king to let Vesemir and Tetra go to the forest to find whatever it is out there and kill it. They find Kitsu, who is clearly now a mutated elf. She also has the ability to make people see what they want to see, and at the same time, a crossbred basilisk comes out and tries to kill Vesemir and Tetra. They have to work together to kill the beast. And then Kitsu runs off. Vesemir and Tetra find her den, and Filavandrel is tied up in there. They discover that the Witchers have been up to some shady business of creating crossbreed monsters. Tetra is glad to find the evidence of her initial beliefs. Filavandrel is beyond pissed, and Vesemir is in total disbelief. They hear a little elven girl that had already been changed. They argue over what to do with her, but it's decided that Filavandrel can take her and care for her, with the agreement that if she hurts anyone, she has to die. Tetra wanted her killed right off the bat, and was pissed that Vesemir let them go. If you aren't familiar with the Witcherverse, then you may not know this, but humans don't like elves, and killed them off nearly to extinction. They are forced to live in the shadows away from humans. Many mages played a big role in killing off the elves. They created monsters to kill off the elves, and then they created the Witchers to kill off those same monsters. Tetra returns to Cadwyn to tell the king what she found out. Luca is immediately put to death. Vesemir confronts Deglin. It turns out Deglin and a powerful mage named Ridrick are to blame for creating the new crossbreeds. Deglin is the one that came up with the idea. He knew that it would keep the Witchers in business, and he hated the way that humans looked down on them. He figured it was only a matter of time before the humans came for the Witchers the way that they did for the elves. Back at Cadwyn, Tetra is able to convince the king that all Witchers need to be put to death along with the mages that created them. They go to battle with the Witchers, and the Witchers lose big time. The only Witcher that survives is Vesemir, and some baby Witchers. All the mages that know how to make Witchers are killed, so there is no way to create any new Witchers. During that same battle, there's a one-to-one combat scene between Vesemir and Tetra. He doesn't realize it, but he's enchanted, and when he thinks he's killing Kitsu, he's actually mortally injuring Ileana. Tetra comes out and has the upper hand, but Declan comes out and kills her. Declan is at death's door. He tells Vesemir to take Ileana away from there. She tells him that some of the young Witcher recruits managed to escape. He tells Vesemir to take them and train them to be something more. It's at this point that we find out Geralt is one of the recruits. So he gives them the option, like, you can either be Witchers or you need to go on your way. So I would think with that ending that they're going to end up doing a show or a movie based on the training of these young recruits. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think it stayed true to the storyline of the books? Do you think it stayed true to the Netflix Witcher series? If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Have a great day.